One of the most popular forms of entertainment today is video games. With the thriving communities that are built around them and the billions of dollars that the industry as a whole makes per year, it's easy to see why it's such a successful and engaging means of enjoyment. Capable of spanning numerous genres, the limits to what gamers can do when playing in a virtual world are almost infinite. And while there are many iconic video games that have made a lasting impression throughout the decades, there is one genre that tends to stand out more than others. We are of course referring to horror games. Some of the most popular titles in the industry are survival horror games, and while they deserve all the recognition they receive, they often get overlooked for being able to accomplish something many would think impossible: to actually scare someone. Being able to do this isn't easy, and there are many games that rely on creepy monsters or sudden jump scares to get a reaction from the player. However, the 5 games we are looking at today do not rely on cheap tricks. They establish mechanics that, instead of getting a quick reaction, build on the suspense and dread as the player continues to move on, leaving a lasting dread. So, here we look at 5 of the scariest video games that we do not recommend you play alone. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Dubbed as the reviver to horror games for its gripping tension and scary elements, Amnesia: The Dark Descent is a survival horror game set in a mysterious castle in 1839. The player takes control of a man named Daniel, who, like the title suggests, is suffering from amnesia and cannot remember anything except his own name. The story follows Daniel as he uncovers the secrets of the castle and tries to understand his own past and why he is there, all while being stalked by what is known as the Guardian. The game itself received tremendous praise from critics and fans alike for its use of subtle pacing and gripping yet intentionally confusing story, and something many games fail to capitalize on: sound. Hearing voices or footsteps and the ominous music that accompanies when an enemy is near is done perfectly, and not too often to avoid the player becoming desensitized to the scares. But what really makes this game scary is the sanity effect it has on both the player and Daniel. We do not want to give away too many spoilers, but staring at the Guardian, staying in darkness too long, or witnessing horrific events causes Daniel's sanity meter to drop, which results in both visual and auditory hallucinations. These can be countered by finding tinderboxes and using them to light lanterns to help restore the sanity meter. However, at the same time, if the player stands in the light too much, the creatures will be drawn to them as they are easier to see. The balance of these elements makes for a nerve-wracking experience, and the slightest movement in a dark corner can be enough for a player to run away and hide in a closet. While this is a true horror experience, it was massively popularized by YouTuber PewDiePie, and with the amount of attention his videos get, it made Amnesia one of the most well-known and respected titles in the horror community. A sequel was released in 2016 to similar reviews, but many agree that its predecessor was far scarier and utilised an element that hadn't really been seen in gaming before. Fatal Frame 2: Crimson Butterfly. Released in 2003, Fatal Frame 2 was at first a sleeper hit that was only popular strictly amongst the horror community, and it stayed that way for a while. A few years later, however, it was brought back into the spotlight and praised for its use in scares that had not been seen before, and few have come close in attempting to recreate this classic. Regarded by many as the scariest game of the 2000s, the game takes place in a ghost town, and the player takes control of Mio, as she and her sister are exploring the area and soon become trapped and hunted by ghosts. The story itself is pretty simple and easy to follow, but where the game shines is in its use of the camera system, as the only way to battle the spirits that are attempting to kill the sisters is to take pictures of them. There is also a damage system where if the player can get certain shots of the ghost, whether it be when they're in an attacking position or forcing Mio to get uncomfortably close to them, it inflicts more damage than a basic snapshot. The beauty and genius in this is that the game is forcing the player to face their fears rather than running away. If Mio tries to run instead of taking pictures, then she will be attacked and ultimately die. The ghosts are unpredictable too, with unique and grotesque designs and surprise animations that cause dread when spotted. Some will slowly move to the player, while others will appear to not move at all until suddenly they rush into the camera. Having to witness all of this in a very direct view increases the tension, and the game doesn't let up as it progresses, leading to even more disturbing ghosts and situations, where Mio has very limited walking space. If you're a fan of true horror, then we would highly suggest this, but do not be surprised if you have to leave the lights on. Outlast. Outlast is a first-person horror game that puts you in the shoes of an investigative journalist named Miles. The loose story focuses around Miles as following up on a lead of unethical practices being conducted as a mental hospital, but attempting to uncover the truth leads to a horror-filled nightmare, where the patients are in complete control of the building, and a cult-like leader believes the events that are happening are all part of a prophecy. Without giving too much away, Miles must find a means of escape from the facility while avoiding numerous deranged and violent inmates. A massive lumbering man known as Walker, and a mysterious creature called the Wall Rider. The true horror in the game, however, comes from the fact that you cannot fight back at all. There are no weapons Miles can use, or any decoys he can set off. All he can do is run and hide. This greatly builds stress and tension, as at any moment an inmate could jump out and attack him, forcing him to run back the other way and losing progress or moving ahead quickly, and risking encountering more enemies while being unprepared. The game forces the player to use stealth tactics and greatly relies on sound to either aid or hinder your efforts. Miles must also rely heavily on his video camera, as the night vision is the only source of light for many areas. However, the camera requires batteries to operate, thus sending the player into a strategic mindset on when and where to use the camera's light source. With there being no map and constant traps throughout the hospital, you can easily lose your way or fall through a hole in the floor, causing you to have to find your way back to where you were. Outlast feeds off of a person's general fear of being stalked or chased by someone. Not knowing how close they are or if they could jump out at any time is truly unnerving, and is something that could be carried through into real life. However, if you enjoy a thrill and are not afraid of the dark, then this may be the perfect game to satisfy that creepy appetite. Layers of Fear. Layers of Fear takes the player for a very intensive ride that by the end will have you questioning your actions, as it delves into the mind of a man who has become disillusioned with his life and surroundings. Unlike many other horror games, Layers of Fear takes a psychological approach and tells a story that, while frightening, is more disturbing and somber. Without giving too much away, the story revolves around an artist who is working on his magnum opus, and you as the player are in charge of helping him accomplish his goal. The story is told in 6 chapters, and as the game advances, the true horror of what the painter struggles with becomes clear. Some have chalked up the game to nothing more than a walking simulator, but we feel that is not giving the appropriate respect to this gem of a title. Whilst it's true, there are no weapons or ability to fight or even run, and there is one enemy in the entire game. It flourishes in this aspect, as you constantly feel as if you're being watched, and every step you take to uncovering the truth only makes you feel more uncomfortable. While it is rather short and can be completed in just a matter of hours, it should definitely be on the list of anyone who wants a genuine scare, and a story that will mess with their heads long after the game is completed. PT. With the simple mention of those 2 letters, a wave of tension can be felt by many of the players who experience this frightening demo. Being regarded as the scariest game of all by dozens of professional reviewers and gamers alike, PT is by far the worst game you could play by yourself. It manages to capture the essence of all things that make a game unnerving and scary. With the repeating and seemingly never-ending maze you go through, the sudden yet simple changes every time you turn the corner, the loud and sudden jump scares, and the lurking woman who seems to still strike fear into those who have played the game numerous times before, PT is truly a masterpiece in horror. The vague story is just enough to give the player an idea as to how they got to where they are, but they make it broad enough to create so many more questions. The game not only messes with the player's psyche with its looping segments, it also attacks their sense of security, as it slowly builds the tension, and just when you think something will happen, nothing does, until out of nowhere, it punches you in the stomach and then lets go. Plenty of gamers flocked to PT when it was released, and many of them had to actually stop the game because they couldn't handle the tension anymore, while others had to take a mental break and come back to it a few hours later. But like many great accomplishments, PT was far ahead of its time, and utilised aspects that other games never came close to perfecting. The game was unfortunately only available for a limited time on PlayStation 4, and due to a legal falling out with the creators of the game, was pulled from the marketplace, but those lucky enough to have downloaded the game were allowed to keep it. Just to give you an idea of how popular this demo was, there were people selling their consoles that had the game included for thousands of dollars, and gamers were buying them without hesitation to be able to experience this masterpiece. So there you have it, 5 of the scariest video games ever made. Let us know in the comments if you agree, and if you'd like to add any more to this list. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.